Hey, what's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is episode number 2 for Classic Albums Revisited, and for this one I'm going to be reviewing one of my new favourite albums of all time, and this album just doesn't need an introduction at all, and I'm going to be reviewing Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. And I thought I would just place the album on my lyric stand like that. And no, I am not copying the needle drop at all. I just thought of this as a pretty cool idea to show you the artwork for the album on a music stand. This album came out in 1969, June 16th, and this is their third studio album. So Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band were a blues group at the time. Safe as Milk, their debut album, is a heavily Delta blues influenced album. And when Strictly Personal came out the next year, it does have some blues elements, but with some experimental psychedelic stuff. So the background behind Trout Mask Replica is very interesting because Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band had been going through a lot of troubles involving record labels. For the making of the album, they have decided to write and rehearse the whole entire music for this album inside a really old house that's very abandoned looking, windows all covered up and bars around type of house, and they've been in that house for 8 months, many hours a day, a very, very long time, with barely anything to eat and drink as well. So Frank Zappa became involved throughout the making of Trout Mask Replica, and Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart, also known as Don Van Vliet, were really close friends at the time. So for the recording of Trout Mask Replica, Frank Zappa became the producer, and Straight Records was Frank Zappa's record label. The album has 28 songs, and its album length is close up to 79 minutes in length. Now, Trout Mask Replica had to be one of the most recognizable and talked about albums in history of music. People would go on about other albums, for examples, the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper, Abbey Road, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, Miles Davis' Kind of Blue, and many other albums. The list is endless, and Trout Mask Replica is another perfect example of that situation alone. It's just an album that Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band did for their own choice, and people would agree that they have their own freedom. So they just got away with the whole thing on the album and just did whatever the heck they want than any other band or artist would do, because on this album you wouldn't really expect anything to be written, recorded, and just crafted perfectly. This is an album that has been criticized by many people that they either love or despise it with a passion. Some people would say that this is like the worst album ever. I wouldn't recommend this album as a first pick for the newcomers for Captain Beefheart. There are other albums that I would recommend first than this album, unless if you want to check out this album. There are other albums that are more listenable and more concentrating to listen to for your eardrums. Albums like Safe as Milk, of course, and Dock at the Radar Station, which is another one of my favourite Captain Beefheart albums. And there are other albums to check out from him as well. But I've got to warn you that Captain Beefheart, a very crazy, weird, and a wacky musician. The whole recording time on this album is between 4 to 6 hours. And that is completely insane. That is the quickest recording time ever. So much more quicker than the Beatles with Please Please Me, Black Sabbath with their debut album, Nick Drake with Pink Moon. I mean, Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band on this album did so much rehearsing. It's just unbelievable to record an album like this in less than 10 hours or 12 hours. Lyrically, from Captain Beefheart is completely insane, but they're just full of randomness and they're really well rhymed as well. There's a lot of things going on from the music that is awfully played, written, and produced, and it's just so mishmashed, out of place. I mean, there's just so much madness from the whole thing on this album. Not a lot of the songs on this album are really long. Most of the songs on here are about between a minute and a half to about 4 to 5 minutes in length. And there are some songs on this album that are spoken word, mainly from Captain Beefheart, and the genre side is mainly avant-garde, which also includes blues, but other genres like psychedelic, free jazz, and some experimentation as well. So there's just a lot of these songs that are just so random. You wouldn't even believe that anyone could create an album as chaotic as Trout Mask Replica. It's just one of the most complex and somehow inspiring and influential albums ever. It's just a major influence to anybody, basically. And not only that, Frank Zappa became the producer for this album, people would go to Frank Zappa's discography and listen to his albums, because on Frank Zappa's discography, it is experimental like Captain Beefheart's discography, but something unique type of side with different genres as well. So let me know if you like Trout Mask Replica or just love it. But it takes a lot, and I mean a lot of listens to really appreciate the hectic atmosphere behind the whole experience from this album. I wouldn't say you would just listen to it and then love it. It's very, very hard to really get into the album, but when I listened to it on repeat, non-stop, it just clicked and I just love it. This is why albums like this is included in my Classic Albums Revisited series and on my all-time favourite albums list as well. It's just an album that is just so unexpected for newcomers to Captain Beefheart. They wouldn't even think about liking the album instantly. So if you really want to try and get into the album a lot more, give the album a lot of spins and just see what you think. That's pretty much all I've got to say about Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. Let me know what you guys think of the album in the comments below. It is a double LP as well when you buy the album. Thank you guys for watching, and I will be reviewing more albums for this series in the near future. I will be posting more videos in the near future for this channel and other stuff really soon. So, peace out guys. Released in the month of June 16th, 1968, and this